Back, FloXC Show Part 3, sponsored by ASICS. I'm Gordon. We're here with Kevin. We were just in Madison not that long ago.
Not too long ago, we kicked off the cross-country season. I was freezing cold. Some people wearing shorts. It was a spectacular meet, though. A lot of surprises.
Yes.
A lot of things shifting in ways that we probably didn't anticipate going into the year, and it was only September.
Let's just get into it. Let's release the updated top 25 FloXC rankings, starting on the women's side, and we got changes galore. Changes all over the place. It's so much change. It's incredible. Starting with 25 to 21, Columbia 21, Penn State 22, Minnesota 23, Utah State, and then Notre Dame falls all the way down to 25.
Let's talk a little bit about Columbia for a second. 11th at Nuttycombe. Gordon, previously not ranked. Their top runner at Nuttycombe, 43rd, but they had a 26-second spread from 1 to 5, which gave them the 11th spot in the meet and vaulted them all the way into the rankings. Did you have them on your radar at all this year?
Did not at all. I mean, they weren't even ranked high in their region alone, in the Northeast region. So big ups to Columbia, showing that strength. The women, 21. Notre Dame kind of falls down to 25. We had them as a top 10 team. And Aurora got third in their home meet. The freshmen didn't really do as well in their Notre Dame Joe Piani Invitational. So Notre Dame still a top 25 team, but not the top 10 caliber team we thought they would be earlier in the year. But, there's still time. Mm-hmm. So let's keep going. 16 to 20, we have Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Washington, and Iowa State.
Yeah, a couple of those teams like Ole Miss, Georgia Tech didn't race, so they stay pat. Washington, interesting, dropped a little bit. They were second at Stanford. They ran Katie Rainsberger, who finished second. Didn't use Lily Burden, though, holding her out for a little while longer. Georgia, second at the Paul Short meet. They ran one drop sister. Jessica didn't run the other one. What do you read into these five?
Yeah, I think the one big one is Washington. We had them also as a top 10 team. We dropped them down to 21, more because outside of Rainsberger and Burden, we still don't know how good their 3, 4, 5 are. They haven't really been challenged yet. They had the Stanford meet. They had the Sun Dodger meet. And because we're starting to get late in the season, they don't really have much of a resume for 3, 4, 5. We know 1, 2, but 3, 4, 5 don't really have much of a resume. So because of that, the unknown, there's not as much confidence anymore. And then you drop down into the high teens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's keep going. Now we get into the juice. The juice of the rankings.
Top 15.
Top 15. Coming in at number 11 is Michigan, Indiana, Furman, Michigan State, and Portland.
Michigan's an interesting team. They've sort of run in meets that are a little bit off the beaten path. They were in Louisville this past week. They got the win. Still dropped a little bit just because we haven't seen them against the best of the best, but they have a really tight pack there with the Meyer sisters, Claire Borchers, et cetera, et cetera. They have a lot of different options, Anna West, of people who can be in that top 5. Indiana makes a big jump. They were 7th at Nuttycombe. They were 21st before that. Margaret Allen, actually the top Hoosier, in 18th ahead of Catherine Receiver, kind of just shows their strength. And then Portland, interesting team. LaRocco and Rawlings, we expected lead the pilots, but we haven't seen their super freshman yet, Camilla Noe.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't seen the super freshman. Their top 2 still did well. I mean, they haven't ranked 12th coming in, so only dropping 3 spots. One team, though, you don't see here, BYU. BYU women. We still have yet to rank them.
Uh-oh.
Where are they?
Big jump up for the Cougars.
Maybe they're in the top 10, because we'll go into the top 10. BYU comes in at number 9, a new top 10 team there for the Cougars. That 6 through 10, though, is Stanford, Arkansas, Wisconsin, BYU, and NC State.
So BYU 18th last week. They dominate the Joe Piani Invitational. Burke and Orton go 1-2 for them.
Both beat Ann Aurora.
They look really strong. Wisconsin, you probably watched the meet on Friday. You saw Alicia Monson, but as a team, I mean, that really pulled the Badgers to a very low score. Arkansas at number 7. They were 5th at Nuttycombe. Their super freshman, Katrina Robinson, top freshman in the race, gets 8th place, stuck her nose in it against the nation's best. And then Stanford, interesting, Elise Cranny, Fiona O'Keefe run really well at home. They get the win, but haven't really been tested as of yet.
Yeah, Stanford still, again, they ran the low-key Stanford meet. We still don't know some of their other runners, like where their status is at. Like, remember Courtney Smith, the Harvard transfer. She hasn't raced since 2016. Where's she at? We don't know. So Stanford still, the unknown factor kind of drops you a bit here. But now we're going to the top 5. And before we get here,
pausing for the top 5.
Pausing for the top 5. Just, not every, it's September. It's September. It's October 1st now.
It's October now, but it was in September.
Things you do in September aren't always aren't always indicative of November.
Yeah,
and
the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, exactly. We kept that in mind going into these rankings. So here we go. Top 5.
That's a disclaimer so people don't yell it.
Boom. Colorado, number 1. They were number 2. We make them number 1. They won Nuttycombe. Nice in fashion there. But New Mexico, we keep them at number 2 over Boise State. Despite Boise State beating them head-to-head at Nuttycombe, Oregon drops to 4. And Villanova, who was a sleeper top 10 team, had a great finish. They finished 4th. They are coming in at number 5. So Villanova, big ups to them. I mean, Rachel MacArthur had a hell of a race. Their 1-2 punch of Nicole Hutchinson and Carolina Cordo was great, and they have yet to run their star freshman, Taryn O'Neill. So look out for Villanova. But let's get back to why is New Mexico, you think, I mean, you might disagree with these rankings. Obviously, everyone can disagree. But Colorado will be number 1, I think is fair.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
But Boise State, New Mexico, Oregon, where's your order? What do you think it should have been?
Well, New Mexico and Boise is an inch. I'm fine with keeping Oregon 4 just because they haven't been tested yet. And obviously, Colorado deserves that number 1 spot after what they did at Nuttycombe. I mean, 80 points. They beat Boise State by 11. I think Boise State has a strong argument for second. Just they were closer to Colorado than they were to New Mexico. And it's not like New Mexico held anybody out, right? They had 3 in the top 7, but their 4th runner, Advocone, all the way in 35th. And then their 5th runner was in the 80s. Boise State, much tighter pack. I mean, they had an awesome 1-2-3. You talk about New Mexico's 3 in the top 7. Boise had 3 in the top 10 with Ostrander, Venters, and O'Brien. So I think you can make a strong case. There's plenty of time to sort it out, but I'm assuming, I don't want to assume what goes on in your brain, but I'm assuming you're thinking Cohen and Nuttall, 2 transfers. They're going to take some time to adjust, and this was a September meet, and that's why you're keeping New Mexico there?
Yeah, that's one factor. I think that Advocone is better than 35th, and I think she will improve over the season. I think Boise State had a great race, but I don't see much room for improvement for the Boise State. I think they all ran just what they can do. And also, like you said, 3 in the top 10 for Boise State. I don't think they'll put 3 in the top 10 at NCAAs, but I do think New Mexico will put 3 in the top 10 at NCAAs because I don't think, I think when you add in the Stanfords and BYUs and all the teams that weren't at this meet, I think New Mexico's top 3 stays up there, whereas Boise State's top 3 becomes maybe top 30. Mm-hmm. So still great, but yeah, it's a factor of,
I think we can definitely say the women's race got a lot more interesting based on the Nuttycombe results. If you had looked at what the standings were after the first mile, you'd be like, all right, this is going to be New Mexico's year. They're not only destroying this field, but they're setting a statement for the rest of the year. But then things changed over those final 3 kilometers. Should we give Colorado a little bit more love?
Yeah, a little more love to Colorado.
I mean, second last week, they had 6 in the top 40 in this race. But obviously the people up front, Jones and Morley and Herta go 4, 6, and 13. I mean, you may think when we factor other people in, Morley and Herta will obviously drop backwards. Jones
stay up there.
Probably going to stay up there. But still, I mean, the depth combined with those 2 or 3 big guns makes Colorado very, very potent right now.
Yeah, and they were ranked preseason number 2 for a reason because they have the experience. And I think races like this, the reason they won was because of experience, and the reason New Mexico didn't win was because of lack of experience from Cohen and Nuttall and then, the other 6, 7 ladies. So I think experience comes when you run more and more and more. So New Mexico will have more shots at, they're going to race Colorado at Mountain. They'll probably race them again at Pre-Nats. So it'll be interesting to see.
Boise at Mountain West.
Race Boise at Mountain West. So they're going to have another shot to see who got. I just think September is kind of like, if you get beat by the Golden State Warriors in December, does that mean you're going to lose to them in the NBA Finals?
Well, one more point.
Or beat them in the NBA Finals.
If you're looking for silver linings for New Mexico, they had a runner win the B race, Sophie Eckel, who's actually faster than the 5th runner, and Alondra Negron, who was their 5th last year, was also in the B race. If they get back to form, we know what Negron can do. She's a legit number 5 runner. That gives them just more depth. The problem I think they do have is they have like a clear 4 and then a question mark at 5, which is like you'd rather have, I guess your question mark be at 6 or 7. Like you want to have 5 solid that you can count on. They
had a question mark at 5 last year too, and they still ended up winning it. So
sure.
I think, I also think it's a weird race, man. We never had a meet like this in September, ever, in the history of the NCAA. This is a meet that happens with 2 more weeks of training. This is like a lot of coaches didn't know how to approach this meet. I mean, they might have known how to, but like it's like because they're used to, all right, Pre-nats is where you get the points, and then you get ready for conferences. But here it's like, what are we doing end of September to kind of prepare for a deep field like this? So normally these meets are like only like 4 top teams, and then everyone kind of spread themselves out, and everyone can kind of feel like not as much pressure. But here, everyone's fifth man and woman were kind of surrounded for the first time early on in their season.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how New Mexico reacts. It's almost like we need to send somebody there to get to the bottom of it.
I'm actually hopping on a plane tonight to New Mexico to film a workout Wednesday, so we'll get the inside scoop of what was going on with their top 7. But let's move on. FloXC Show Men's Edition.
Here we go.
Ladies first, men second. Here we go. Coming in at number 25 to 21, UCLA, NC State, Indiana, Eastern Kentucky, and Washington State. Thoughts? You have some notes?
Interesting. I have a lot of notes here. Interestingly, UCLA second at the Stanford meet. Robert Brandt won the race, but was listed as unattached.
That could be their redshirting him. It could be. So we're still assuming he's on the team. That's why they're top 25. But if they take him off, they might not be a top 25 team because Robert Brandt is a top 30 guy. I think we have him in our top 25 in FloXC rankings. So UCLA, they may be kind of maybe looking towards 2019 maybe. But until then, we're going to keep him in.
Well, and if he did count to the team score, they would have been much closer to Stanford. Eastern Kentucky, interesting. We had them 12 last week. They got 12th at Nuttycombe. Had a great race from James Segura, who finished 4th, but they fall quite a bit just because that gap between him and the number 2 runner was so large. Yeah,
Eastern Kentucky, still it's a work in progress, but they had Eric Rotich, who was their number 1 guy last year in the B race. So their number 1 guy from last year is still trying to get back from injury. They still have time to kind of get back together, but I think when it all comes together, they should be a top 20, top 15 team.
And Washington State, previously not ranked, they jump back in, but they started the year ranked.
Yes.
So they out, in.
Out. So hopefully they stay in. Here we go. Let's keep going to 16 through 20. Oklahoma State, Oregon, Bama, Purdue, and Southern Utah. A lot to talk about here in this list. We'll start with Purdue. Purdue, hell of a race. They finished in the top 10, right? Ninth. Purdue, no one was talking about the Purdue cross-country team. Jared Carpenter is a great number 1 for them. But big ups to Purdue to cracking the top 20 for the first, top 25 for the first time that I recall. So
no, a spectacular run by Carpenter. They have that low stick, but it was real, success by committee for them. I want to talk about Bama at 18, though.
Ooh, Bama.
I mean, big drop. 7th last week. Only finished 4 guys. Noel Rotich, who we thought was going to be one of the 2 missing pieces that they needed to make them a podium team and then potentially even a national title contender. He dropped out, but 2 other guys dropped out. Vincent Kiprop scratched early on, but they started with 7. So I guess if you're trying to beat Bama to earn a point, you don't get that. But even Keegan and Chalanga, they were fine, but they didn't look as good as we'd expect. Not as worried about them, but just the depth was exposed here.
I think the reason why they dropped down here is because basically they're the same team now as last year. Keegan, Chalanga, and Kiprop will be great up front. I think they'll put all 3 in the top 25, maybe top 30. And then they'll 4-5. If Noah Rotich isn't healthy and gets dropped down and it's not on this roster when it comes to NCAAs, they'll put 3 in the top 30, and then their 4-5 are going to finish in the low 200s, high 190s. And then that's going to get you top 20 because that's what they did last year. They were top 20 last year with this formula. It's the exact same team as last year. They're just going to do the same thing. So that's why they dropped down to 18.
Oregon didn't race. They're at 17. Oklahoma State, first chance to see a lot of their JC transfers at Nuttycombe.
This ranking is more indicative.
Indicative.
I'm really bad at those words. Because they didn't run everyone. There were some.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State held out 2 or 3 potential top 7 guys. So, like Isaiah Rodriguez, I believe, redshirt freshman didn't run, sub 14 guy. There was another JUCO guy that didn't run. So Oklahoma State still has a few more chambers in the bullets in the chamber. Chambers in the bullets in the chambers that we might see by Big 12s.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. It was just interesting to see them out there with a lot of new faces.
But they had one guy who finished in the top 15.
Yeah.
So
build around that.
Yeah.
Top 15. Here we go.
Washington makes a big jump to 11. Ole Miss 12, Virginia 13, Colorado State 14, Air Force 15.
Yeah, Washington doesn't race but jumps up. So advice to all the teams out there. You want to move up in the rankings. Don't race. Ole Miss.
Don't have bad performances. And then, hey, we were.
Ole Miss, yeah. Ole Miss didn't race. Virginia didn't race. Colorado State really, really came strong at Nuttycombe. 6th. Cole Rockhold, top 10. That guy is so under the radar in everything he does. But 6th place in that field, and Cole Rockhold top 10 individually. Mountain West, powerful right now.
Yeah, it was powerful. And Air Force as well, right behind them. 2 Colorado teams. Both of those teams beat the University of Colorado.
That's right. Mickey Davey led Air Force, ran really well too.
So now they did beat a Colorado team that did not have Joe Klecker. And Joe Klecker eventually will make that team's 5th man all of a sudden and lose 140 points, and then that becomes a much better team. But Colorado and Air Force solidifying themselves back into the top 15. We had them as like a low 20s type school, but now after a strong performance at Nuttycombe, they're in the top 15. And Washington, I think Washington's got something brewing. They didn't run Fred Huxham at Beantown, and after seeing how other teams performed at Nuttycombe, hey, the best going 0-0 is better than going 0-1, right? So
it's good philosophy.
Top 10, here we go. What do we got? Boom, Syracuse. Speaking of going 0-0, Syracuse went 0-0, so they got a big bump. But Boise State with a great run. They were, what?
Fifth with a 23-second spread, 1 through 5, the lowest spread in the entire top 10.
Boise State 7th, Stanford 8, Colorado 9, and Arkansas 10. So I think the big one out here that everyone's looking at is Stanford.
Yeah, address the Cardinal in the room.
We had them 5th last week, and we dropped them down 8 spots. And not 8 spots, to the 8th spot. I don't think it's because Stanford got 3 places worse. I think it's just that the field got 3 places better. And I think seeing Boise State be there just with Portland and Iowa State neck and neck, and with Wisconsin for that matter, just added Boise State to that podium conversation. And then Syracuse, when you really look at what they did at Beantown and comparatively, we have this way to do kind of formulaic rating comparisons of the Beantown results versus Nuttycombe results. And when you kind of look where Syracuse's guys would have finished in Nuttycombe, they would have been there with Boise State. And same thing with Colorado. Colorado would have been with Boise State if you throw in Joe Klecker. So Stanford's it's a field of, I would say it's a field of 9 teams that can podium now. Before I would say it was a field of 5, but now I think it's 9, and that's why Stanford dropped down to 8. But we'll find out more. I mean, once Stanford shows their true guns with Fahey, Osberg, and Fisher. Well, no. Plus, Osberg got 5th at the Stanford meet.
Right.
If Osberg's a top 20 guy, he should have been right up there with Robert Brandt.
Well, it's still September, though.
It is September.
Remember that.
It is.
Saying of the day. Yeah, Klecker doesn't finish, but Dressel ran really well.
Yes.
For Colorado finishing 10th.
Klecker and Dressel are basically the same person. They have the same track PRs virtually for the first 3 years in college.
They're the same major.
They just the same hairstyle. They're always going to finish within. So if you would throw in Klecker in the 12th position or 10th position at Nuttycombe, Colorado would have finished right next to Boise State.
It's like you said about how 9 teams are in the mix, almost like tiers, right? We have first tier, which is occupied by 1 team. Then we have maybe the second tier with teams that could get podium teams. But that's a big group, and it just grew.
It grew. Yeah. It grew. And now to the top 5. Once again, September meets don't mean everything, except for NAU. It means a lot for NAU. But here we go. Coming in, NAU and BYU stay 1-2 because they did what they were supposed to do. But we did not move Wisconsin to the number 3 spot. I think a lot of people would think, hey, if you beat Portland and Iowa State, you should be 3rd or 4th in the nation. But when you look at the results, Wisconsin beat Portland by 5 points. And Wisconsin's 5th was 40 points or something back from Portland's 5th. Portland left out a few of their guns that maybe not their top guns, but left out Ruben Caprono. They left out a few others. So they left out maybe their potential number 4 guy who will make them even deeper. Mm-hmm. And I think Wisconsin had a great day. I don't think there was anyone at Wisconsin's squad who's like, oh, he had an off day. I think everyone had a great day, especially their top 3 or 4. Yeah. Whereas Portland, Emmanuel Levesque Rudolph was 39th. That guy can finish in the top 15.
Yeah.
So and the same thing with Iowa State. Andrew Jordan was 31st. He can finish in top 15. I think there were some top guns from Portland and Iowa State who will have better races, whereas I think Wisconsin kind of tapped out. in my opinion.
Well, they get the win with Morgan McDonald. Oliver Hoare ran really well, 13th. He drifted
and
off
Olin
at the
Hacker
end.
ran great as well.
Olin Hacker, underrated, 17th place, made Wisconsin the only team that had 3 before NAU's 5. Just to demonstrate how dominant NAU was, but also how well Hacker ran. I mean, that was a good finish to get in the top 20. Yeah, I see that. I mean, Emmanuel Rudolph Levesse, we have him forecasted to be a top 20 runner, so I think the It's September thing really applies to him. BYU was dominant at Joe Piani in Notre Dame. Connor McMillan gets the win again. They had 5 in the top 9, but we just don't know until they're actually in the same race with NAU how they match up. But, I mean, how can you argue with NAU being the resounding number 1, 4 in the top 8? They don't run Matt Baxter. The guys who needed to improve have improved more than we thought. Peter Lamong is back to where he was before. Blaze Farrow has the best or the second best name in cross country, along with Joe Dragon in Syracuse. I mean, they met, like you said, you can discount it if you want because it's September, but there's performances that are so strong that they can't help but influence your view of the season. This was one of them.
Well, here's the question. Grijalva and Farrow, they were both top 10. They're both sophomores. They really, I mean, Grijalva was what, 60th at NCAAs?
Right.
Blaze wasn't even on the squad. Do you think that these two guys are going to be this good at NCAAs?
Yeah.
Like top 10 good?
Top 10. Well, when you throw anybody in, but I think comparatively.
You think they'll both be like top 20, top 25?
Yeah. I don't think they have the potential to. I don't think NAU. I think NAU's been around long enough to know that they're not peaking for this meet. And Mike Smith has earned the benefit of the doubt, the credit to know that he's going to get them even better then. Now, they may have – everybody's prone to having off days.
Like Andy Truard. Andy Truard was 35th last year, and
Right.
he was like second at this meet.
Right. So everybody's prone to bad days. But the thing with NAU is then somebody just rotates
That's
in.
true.
So the next person up, the next
There's a
person up.
Lamong there who will come in and get 8th.
Right. Or Beamish, who is in the 20s. Maybe he moves up and switches where Farrow is. But, Gordon, they won by 89 points, and they didn't run Matt Baxter. That's preposterous.
Well, how many points would they have scored if they – we got a little fan. We have a doggy
super
fan
here.
Big NAU fan.
Visiting us.
But
on the set here. I mean, 25 or something like that. I mean, if Baxter was there, there's no reason to think Baxter would have finished behind Farrow. So then they would have had 5 in the top 9. I mean,
they're good.
Everybody would have been in the top 10.
So what do you think the rest of the field is thinking now? Like, what do you think the rest of the coaches that aren't named Mike Smith are thinking right now?
I mean, I think BYU hasn't seen them firsthand, and BYU is the only team that has the depth to get anywhere near them. But I think everybody else, you see a performance like that, I don't think you're like, oh, yeah, go chase those guys. Especially because the way NAU runs, right? It's very clear. It's very bold. They're going to go up front and you're going to control the race. You know, Portland, Colorado, they're not going to chase that because the risk is too great.
Yeah.
You do that, you fall back, and then you're off the podium completely.
Yeah, I feel like in general, maybe BYU is going to be fighting for the win, but I feel like a lot of people are just like, we want to make sure we podium. Yeah. Whereas NRIU is not running to make sure they podium; they're running to win.
BYU or NAU?
NAU.
NAU. Yeah.
BYU might be the only team who will run to win. I think they ran to win last year and then they blew up. Mm-hmm. I bet you if BYU ran to podium, they probably would have got second.
Right.
They probably would have beat Portland. Right. But because they were running for the win and they didn't have a perfect day, they blew up. But maybe is it worth the risk? Is, running for the win and then blowing up and getting 4th or 5th worth it than running conservatively and guaranteeing second?
Right. And I think Peter Lamong just embodies NAU's strength right now because he had a great cross-country year last year with the 8th place finish, then didn't run well in indoor and outdoor. He mentioned he got complacent, but his superpower, as he describes it, is running with his team. I mean, you saw it. He's smiling. He's pointing around. He's having a great time there. But in throwing him back, it's almost unfair throwing him back into the mix. That was one of the only question marks I had. And then they
added 2 more. Now they added 2 more security blankets in Grijalva and Farrow.
Right. So. And we talked about how Wisconsin was the only person to have 3 in their top 5. Well, if Baxter runs, then no one has even 3 in their top 5. Yeah. And the stat that you like to pull, which is an interesting stat, is whichever, the 4th man is the most indicative of a team's success.
Yeah.
So their 4th man was 8th place.
So it's like literally impossible for anyone else's fourth man to be better.
It's mathematically. Yes.
I guess it was completely half one team and half the other. But
exactly. But I'm still interested to see what BYU does, because they ran an interesting combination at Notre Dame. Some names were on there that you expected, but maybe some names that were there. I mean, they're just so deep, you could rotate a bunch of people in. So I'm really fascinated to see what sort of combination at iStone comes up with. And the one thing, too, that could change, this was 8,000 going to 10,000, introduces a little bit of extra thing there. Grijalva, more of a 1,500-meter runner, ran well last year. I'm sure he's prepping for 10,000, but not ready just to say, like, okay, the entire thing is over right now.
Well, that's why they run the race. We'll find out. NAU number 1, Colorado number 1, but it's not decided today. It's decided in November, which will be live on FloTrack, the NCAA cross-country championships. But up next, we have pre-nationals. You going back to Madison with us?
I am going back to Madison.
Let's do it. Pre-nationals will be live at 9 a.m. Central for pre-nats. It's going to be a 7-hour broadcast because we got 6 races. We're going to have a live pre-show. It's going to be great. It's going to be wild. And maybe we'll see BYU race NAU, or they're going to split them up, make them race separate races.
Yes, the second thing.
They're probably going to split them up, make us debate it even more. But we'll find out. We will have a live show next Monday where we will announce the fields, because they're splitting the fields evenly. So the first place to find out will be live here on FloTrack, where we'll have a live show where we announce field Cardinal and field White. Cardinal and White, those are the 2 names of the races.
Okay.
And we'll find out, will BYU race NAU, or they split them up? We don't know. And it's a lot to debate because we don't know who you racing at pre-nats. Thanks for tuning in, and check out the D2, D3 show with Lincoln tomorrow. Bye.